I will now call to order the Monday, December 5th, 2011 informational meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council. We'll begin this afternoon's meeting with a staff report from Sue Roust, our interim city clerk.
Thank you. As some of you know, I was gone last week, so I don't have much to report, but I did want to give you some final numbers on the cost of the special election last month. Originally it was budgeted at $45,000, and after I started and we did a review of that, I had suggested that it probably would cost $51,000. The final total was $53,000. And the biggest reason for that extra cost was the large number of absentee ballots. Because we had to bring in a substantial number of people to process them on election day, the cost of the workers just to open the absentee ballots came to $1,300. There were 30 of them. And then the supplies for the absentee envelopes and so on came to $1,300. So I don't think that's too bad. As far as cost per voter goes, it's probably the lowest cost election the city has had, at least in a long, long time. In comparison, last year's runoff election that had 32,000 voters, the cost was $1.46 per voter. This one had 40,000 voters, 25% more, and so the cost dropped to $1.29 per voter. As far as budget, this means that we will be over on the line item assigned for elections within the clerk's budget, but there are several other lines that are not being expended, and we have more than enough to cover that overage. So budget overall should not be a concern. And so that's what I had to report to you today.
Thank you. Any questions for Sue? If not, we'll ask Councillor Rolfing to give us a report on the Land Use Committee meeting from November 28th, and also maybe an update on his task force meeting. Councillor Rolfing.
Thank you, Councillor Aguilar. We had a good meeting on the land use meeting. We discussed the tax incremental districts, TIFs that are coming to us. We had a report from Erica Beck on that. Well, I guess it wasn't from Erica Beck. It was from Jeff. Yeah, and she had some voice problems, as I remember, so everything was good there. And then we also had some from Jeff. We had information about the zoning board on the variances that are coming on board. So the notification on those that will be brought into the same type of notification that was that we'll be using for the that is being used for the zoning notification now. And then we had some our first zoning or our first urban agriculture meeting last Friday. Very interesting meeting. We had probably 50 people there, 40, 50 people there. And also the task force was introduced. We kind of set our agenda, and we'll be moving forward again on the 16th of this month, setting some kind of an outline of where we want to go, and then we'll be looking at taking some public input.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Rolfing? If not, we'll go on to council open discussion, and I would like to begin council open discussion this afternoon by calling forward Larry Toll from the pavilion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the council. Good afternoon. Let me introduce Erica Lacey. Erica is the director of the Kirby Science Discovery Center. And she's got a handout that I will talk from here momentarily. I wanted to remind you that everything we do at the pavilion is funded through the entertainment tax. And obviously what happened in the end of 2008 and 09 and through at least the early part of 2010, we saw a significant decrease in entertainment tax. Entertainment tax is what we have used to fund new exhibits in the Kirby Science Discovery Center, and obviously because of significant cutbacks, we really haven't had anything new added there for a while. We've also been in conversations with the city on the renewal of our contract, which is on your agenda tonight. And one of the things they're concerned about is refreshing the Science Center too, getting in new exhibits. So an opportunity came our way. Erica was at a meeting of industry meeting in Baltimore here a couple weeks ago and looked at a traveling show, to bring a traveling show into Sioux Falls. What you have there in front of you is a 4-page overview of a show that is called Nature Unleashed: Inside Natural Disasters. And it's, you'll see there's a 4-page summary there, and on the back of the last page of that build-up, you'll see where it has been. This comes from the Field Museum in Chicago. It's, if you total up those numbers, roughly about 1 million people have seen it already. Right now it is at the Science Museum of Minnesota in St. Paul. And we are, if you look on their calendar, January 28th to May 5th was open. This show is a $250,000 show. That's what they're charging for most of the stays. We have been negotiating with them, and I met with Mr. Turbeck, of the City Finance Director, last week to talk through the issues of trying to bring that in here. And what I bring you today is how we're going to try to do that. Following the industry show that Erica was at in Baltimore, she went to St. Paul last week, looked at the show, and we decided to try to find a way to bring that to Sioux Falls. Here's how I think we're going to try to do this. We have the loose sheet that was in the pile-up you got is the capital program detail for the pavilion. In 2012, you see that there is $150,000 for a building improvement. And what that is it's a wastewater heat recovery process where we will capture the heat off the backside of our air conditioning units and use that for both humidification as well as for the reheat cycle of after the air comes through the chiller. Today we run a boiler in the summertime and reheat it with we're running a boiler all summer. So this will be much more energy efficient. However, if you look at the fact that I can't do anything to get a design until after the first of the year because the money won't be available until January 1, by the time we design it, bid it, award that bid, and then start the construction, we're going to miss the cooling the season in which we need to do cooling in the building in 2012. So what I'm proposing to do is to divert a good portion of that $150,000 and take it to put it towards this show. Now, I said it was a $250,000 show. We negotiated with the Field Museum, and we've got that price down to about $70,000. We'll have to go in and clear one whole floor out of the Science Center. It takes about, if you look at the front sheet in the middle, it takes about 7,500 to 8,000 square feet, so we'll have to clear out the entire floor, remove that from the floor, and then bring the other show in after it closes in St. Paul. I think it closes on the 8th in St. Paul. We will then install that for the run from the 28th of January until May 3rd, which is kind of prime time for schools. We always do a thing called Free First Fridays where we let everybody in for free on Friday from 5 to 8 on that first Friday of the month. Once we get this exhibit in, I think we're going to want to look and probably add more free Fridays so that we can give more people an opportunity to see this for free than might otherwise see it. So that's what we're planning to do. Our budget is somewhere around $125,000, which would then leave $25,000 that we could leave remaining in the CIP program. I could do the design of the wastewater heat recovery process in 2012 and have it up and operational for the summer of 2013, which would be exactly what would probably happen if we followed the current plan. So I am available for any questions. Erica has a little bit more knowledge on the show itself, so if you need her, she's available as well.
Questions for Mr. Toll? Councillor Erpenbach.
Thanks, Larry. This is great information. Are there things that are related to this show that are happening at the same time at the Pavilion? Is there a reason that this one is so special?
What's interesting is we have just got a bid in. We're looking at going to a digital technology in the Cinedome, which will give us your home HD TV, if you have one, has 1,080 lines. We're getting a digital projector that will have 4,000 lines, and so we'll go to an all-digital content, which, if you've ever seen those film rolls we have that are real tall, very heavy, to two men and a boy, as they say, to get it loaded in and get it operational, we'll just really have it'll all be software-driven. And the first film, hopefully that will be up and operational in March, and the first film we intend to show is Hurricane Alley. At the same time, Paul Schiller's show of storm clouds and storm shots from all over the state will be in the Visual Arts Center. If I could only get the Wizard of Oz back, it would be the trifecta.
Any other questions? Councillor Jameson.
Larry, thanks for coming. I just want to make sure I got this right. Are we, you really don't need our approval or blessing to do this?
As I understand it, once the entertainment tax dollars are allocated, we have the ability to switch those around to various things. If you look at that sheet I gave you, if you look at KSDC exhibits in 2013, I've highlighted that in the yellow as well. What I would intend to do in 2013 then is to move the remaining money I need from that line up to complete the wastewater heat recovery process. So it will be trading dollars, hopefully that will be allocated in 2013 for exhibits back to do the project that will help us from an energy efficiency standpoint.
Well, I just wanted to say, you know, I think you're doing a fine job over there at the Pavilion, so, I mean, I appreciate you coming forward to talk to us, but I think you've got your hands steady on the wheel and proceed as you have been.
Well, thank you. I wanted to make sure you were all informed on what we were doing, and
Councillor Karski.
Quick question, Larry. You said right now it's the Kirby Science Center would be open. There would be no exhibits in there during that time, correct?
we have exhibits on 2, 3, and 4. We would have to clear all the exhibits off third floor, and this would be in place of those. So if you were a member of the Pavilion and came came to use the Science Center, it would be free to you. This will obviously generate, I think, more interest and more traffic. To what level? We haven't done a traveling show since early on in the Pavilion, so I would envision that we would have more traffic, but I really have no assessment today of how much.
A follow-up to that, if I may, then, is what kind of revenue does this generate, or is this a source of revenue for you?
It will be a source of revenue. It should generate that additional traffic where people come in and they're not members, who come in and buy a one-day ticket. It probably will generate membership. So if people coming and saying, well, this is great, there's a lot of artifacts from tornadoes, there are messages that were pinned on trees in Katrina that are preserved in part of this, and I think it's going to appeal to a broader audience than our typical up through 8th grade. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity to do outreach in the community, and hopefully will generate revenue as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Entenmann.
Larry, could you just go through that cost again? It's my understanding it was about $125,000 for this exhibit.
Yep.
Total, leaving you an additional $25,000 that you plan, according to the CIP budget, that you plan on using then to design the systems that you hope to install the following year, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Shows like this require insurance. That's probably $5,000. We have to pay for the shipping out, and so or in. So we will get it, pay for the shipping from St. Paul to here, which is about $10,000. We don't have to pay for the shipping to Oregon, thank God. Installation time, they'll bring some of their staff from the Field Museum in Chicago in to do the installation. They'll be here for a couple days. They'll be here a couple days to take it out. We're estimating 2 of their specialists, an art handler, and a general installation. So it'll be some of our people, some of their people. We've got to pay to store remove and then store our piece parts that we're taking off there. Projector bulbs, these things are, they're 26 projectors? 13. Well, I had twice as many as we need. A bulb in each of the projectors are like $500. So we've got some money in there for bulbs. The gallery preparation of taking and repairing the drywall, repainting it so that we can bring it in and it'll be fresh and is about $7,500. And then one thing we discovered as we've done Warhol and Norman Rockwell and soon to be Ansel Adams, the show starting in March, is that if we don't market it, people do not know. So we plan on spending about $15,000 on marketing, and that's what we have spent on those shows, and it seems to get a fairly broad reach in the community. It's, you know, I'm trying to think through who would like to be a sponsor of natural disasters, and there isn't anyone that really quickly comes to mind, but
Thanks, Larry.
You're welcome.
Councillor Anderson Jr.
I'd like to pose a question to Tracy, our finance director, on this. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Give us a little more, a basic explanation of our entertainment tax and the use of that.
Okay. The entertainment tax originates from the sale of, it's an additional 1% tax on the sale of motel rooms, hotel rooms, restaurant meals, and alcoholic beverages primarily. The use of the tax historically has been for the pavilion, in addition to supporting the convention center operations, and then, of course, the debt service on those two facilities, a portion of the debt service.
Okay, my thinking was that that was more for like building repair and things like that on the pavilion, convention center, arena, and the zoo, I believe.
We do budget some amount for major repair and maintenance items for the pavilion and for the convention center. There is some budgeted next year for repair and maintenance of the arena facility, but there has not been anything budgeted for the zoo in terms of repairs and maintenance. But now, in addition, of course, as Mr. Toll indicated, their operating contract for the pavilion is funded through the entertainment tax as well.
Okay, and that's what I was getting to. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Toll? If not, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Further City Council open discussion. Councillor Brown.
I would respectfully ask that we have Terry Torkelson from SMG address the council in a future informational regarding the Skyforce leaving. You know, there's been an assumption that it wasn't included in the reports, and it was in the AECOM report, and I assume it was also involved in the operational expenses of the Ide Bailey report. I think we owe it to ourselves and the citizens to understand exactly what that impact will mean to the arena long term. So I would ask that we bring him forth and have him explain that. I've had citizens ask me what the dollar value of that contract is, number of dates, and those are all questions I'm not able to answer.
I would ask staff then to contact Terry and get him on a future informational agenda. Councillor Anteman.
Thank you. I think it's good to have him here to explain that too. All along, I've been talking with Terry, and all along, the Skyforce, since the last task force that we did have, the Skyforce organization was adamant about the fact that they did not want to leave the arena. Okay, they were not interested in the new event center because the arena was designed specifically for basketball. One of the things that we have had, which came up time and time again during all the conversations we've had throughout the years, is the fact that with the sports teams that we have in the current arena, the availability of weekend dates there is no availability of weekend dates. They're pretty much all booked out. And quite honestly, from the standpoint of the Sports Authority and also from Terry Torkelson and talking with them, they believe that the opportunities now to go out and get additional shows as a result of this, in 3 years from now, of course, because it's 2 years before they're going to be moving into the Pentagon, But they were positive that it's going to actually help to open up additional dates and additional flat floor space that could be used for things like possibly sports show expansion, and as well as the home show type expansion stuff too. So I agree. It'd be nice to have that in there, to have them talk and talk a little bit about what opportunities exist because of that. But I quite honestly look at it as being a possible venture. That, and also the fact that it's a significant investment that's being made by Sanford and by the Skyforce into this Pentagon, which I really believe are going to really enhance the opportunities that we have for winter athletic opportunities in the city of Sioux Falls. And it's a business case that they're making out, too. That's been explained to us, too, from Sanford's standpoint. But I believe it'd be worth just having him here just to point that out.
Yes, so staff will get that arranged. Any other, Councillor Jameson?
I'd like to add to that discussion a little bit with concern that if any of the council members really knew that the Skyforce was leaving before the election. I mean, that was always included in the ACOM report. Nobody thought they were leaving the arena. Nobody probably would have bet that they were going to go to the event center. But we sure, at least I was surprised to find that we were losing a tenant. So I guess I'm wondering if anybody knew that, either on the city council or within the administration, that the Skyforce was actually going to be leaving. Because I think that's a big piece of information that we should have known. It's unfortunate that we didn't. We read about it in the paper or saw it on the news. So the other question comes, what about the Stampede and the Storm? Does anybody know if they're going to stay in the arena or move to the event center? I don't think anybody knows. They've kind of made that clear that they don't really know, or they're wondering what the rent's going to be. And I just find it hard to, kind of sit here and be strapped over a barrel by the Stampede and the Storm on whether or not they're going to move into this new event center. Because if they don't move there, I think the naming rights value goes way down. Who's going to buy the suites? I think we should be concerned about these things so that when we go ahead and build this event center, we're not overly surprised to find that the Storm and the Stampede are staying in the arena because they can't afford the event center. So I'd just like us to be prepared for that. And we need to be thinking about that, and perhaps a way to address it is to, instead of waiting another year for the contract to be up with the arena and the pavilion, or the arena and the convention center, maybe we need to expedite that timeline and move it sooner. Because right now, today, who's in charge of renting out space at the new event center? The CVB, Global, SMG? I think they're all trying to figure it out. And here we have two sports teams that are trying to figure out their lease terms on a new event center. And we don't have it figured out. And we're about to borrow $115 million for this thing. It seems appropriate we'd have these things in order before we started down that path. So I don't know how we could do that, but it's just an idea that perhaps we need to change the timeline of management of that facility. So
we are going to have a presentation next week from the administration on an update as to what's happening, and I think that these are good questions that should be brought forward at that time.
You say that's next week?
Next week.
Okay.
At our informational.
That was
Councillor
a question.
Entenmann?
That was
Yes.
a question I had for you, Sue. I noticed in the notes that we had, there was a mention that the administration was going to continue to give us monthly updates, and I was going to ask you what the next update
Yes.
was. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that will be next Monday. Other council open discussion. Councillor Erfenbach.
Well, we were going to talk legislative priorities, and Sue Roust has graciously agreed to lead that conversation. She has sort of a score sheet that some of us have contributed to, and then others were to, if you have preferences, air them now, I guess. And then we also have, Attorney Fife Lee has a list. Some of them coordinate with our list, and so we need to kind of put those things together and get to a point where we can be ready to vote.
The goal would be to have a resolution before you that you could adopt at your December 19th meeting, because we have the breakfast meeting with the city, county, and school districts. and the legislators on Wednesday, December 21st. And so we were hoping we could come to a consensus today. At this point, the score sheet that Councillor Erpenbach had forwarded to you all, I have responses from Councillors Aguilar and Rolfing. And in addition, we have the memo that came out from Dave Fife Lee this afternoon. I have a paper copy for you. Of the 7 items on here, 4 of them you have seen before. The ones about raising the 911 fee, the zoo, the surplus laws issue for the zoo animals, combating the growing use of synthetic marijuana, and legislation to require state registration of family daycares. There are 3 new items on there that we've just seen this afternoon, the 2 that are from finance and 1 that's from legal. And so I don't know if the rest of you are prepared to tell us what your priorities are.
Councillor Jameson?
I just have one that we got to do something about. If we can get on the list, please. It's the liquor license renewal authority that just straps us here at the council. If we could get some help from the legislature to give us some teeth. I know we've talked about it before, and I don't know all the details that it would take for us to get that. But please.
It is on our priority list, and there are so far, 4 or 5 people that are supporting that, so that looks like one that would be higher.
City Attorney Fife Lee, did you want to say anything about your list?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, since a couple of those items are from finance, if I could have permission for the City Finance Director to maybe explain further the other 2 that are emanating from the City Finance Department. And for the public's information, we asked all 12 city departments to come forward with any possible priorities list for the City Council, and that's what we're discussing right now.
Director Turbeck, welcome.
Good afternoon again. The 2 additional items, and there has been some discussion among the council members on at least one of these 2, I believe, I recall last week at the informational, and that is I believe it's the 3rd item on the list that Mr. Fife Lee provided to you, which reads, amend the law to exempt all municipal projects, facilities, and equipment from sales and use taxes so long as the municipality retains ownership and control regardless of who installs or operates the facility or equipment. And that is a policy that is consistent with the South Dakota Municipal League Statement of Policy as well for 2012. And it really goes to our managed facilities where the city funds the purchase of goods or equipment, for example, the arena, the convention center, or the pavilion, but yet because we have a management company running the facility, we do end up paying state sales tax on that. And so it's one taxing jurisdiction collecting taxes from another taxing jurisdiction, which doesn't seem to be appropriate, at least in my view and in the view of the South Dakota Municipal League. So that's what that item is all about.
Chair.
Councillor Entenmann.
Tracy, question. Already, of course, from the city standpoint, if you folks go out and purchase something, you're tax exempt, right, as a municipal government or as a government service. But this specifically deals with the facilities, and it's not tax exempting the usage. In other words, what they charge people to attend events. It's just for like maintenance and repairs of in the facilities. Is that what it is?
That'd be correct. If we purchase a piece of equipment that's used at one of these facilities, and we use city funds to pay for that indirectly, because even though the city retains ownership of it, when the state looks at it, they look at it as a taxable transaction to purchase that equipment. Now, when they turn around and, like you say, use it, lease it out, or rent it to a day-to-day user of the facility, those transactions are appropriately taxed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councillor Erpenbach.
That one is on our list. It's number 107, and some of us have already shown support for that, as Tracy said earlier. Would it also, if it were to pass the legislature this year, would it also apply to projects like the event center? I mean, we're going to buy stone and steel and drywall and all that stuff. Would that apply?
This, I don't believe this particular provision would apply to the event center. but I think that's a good question, and that's a question that's really with the contractor's excise tax as opposed to sales tax is one that often comes into question relative to public facility project where we're constructing facilities, and that's been a point of contention for some time between the municipalities and the state of South Dakota. Why is the city required to pay contractors excise tax, which is essentially again a taxing entity transferring tax to another taxing entity?
I'm sure it would be an amazing boost to the state.
Councillor Karski.
And that was my question too, Councillor Erpenbach. I mean, the excise tax, if we're looking at $50 million in, hard material that we're buying for the event center, I mean, that's $1.5 million that we're paying to the state for excise tax. And I was wondering also if this included the excise tax when it says sales and use tax. I mean, it is transferring money from one government entity to another is what it's doing. So I'm curious on the same question, or good point there. And then I'd also like to voice my support of Councillor Jameson for the local control for the cities and municipalities to control the liquor licenses a little bit tighter when we know there's a problem here. That should be our control locally.
If I may, the second item that was submitted by Finance is the second item on your list as well. That would be to allow the local option of an additional up to $2 per room night occupancy tax for the business improvement districts. Again, it would be simply authorizing that under state law as an additional local option.
Councillor Antoman?
Yes. I do have a question, but it's not for Tracy, if I might just.
Okay.
Councillor Erpenbach, if you could just read out, if you could read, what did you say, we have 4 or 5 that we had talked about last time. Could you read those out again, please?
Well, we have quite a list because some of us have voted just, for individual pieces, but the ones that are, I guess we haven't really tallied the votes, but if I just go through my little notes on the column, is that all right for everyone?
Yeah.
There is and these are all based on, most of them are based on this municipal league policy statement. The first one is a basic broad statement about local control in the municipalities. The second one is state support for Highway 100. And then the third one, again, in just shorthand, is the surplus, changing the way surplus property is handled in terms of the zoo animals. The next one is 911 equality across the systems. The next one is the Big Sioux River Basin, and then expanding the 911 base. Stormwater detention ponds is one of them. Frontage fees. Again, these are based on the policy statement, and they each have a number. Special assessments outside the city limits. The next one is street improvement assessments. And the next one is one we just addressed, exempting the municipalities from paying sales and use taxes. The next one is increasing the 911 fees. Those are all on the policy statement, and then we have Councillor Jameson's authority to revoke liquor licenses on a local level. State support for Lewis and Clark, the voting centers that has come from our interim city clerk, daycare registrations, which is one that's on the list from the administration today. The synthetic marijuana one is also on the list from the administration. And that was the list that we came up with just as we started the conversation.
So I guess that the question today would be, in discussing this initially, we talked about having 4 priorities, but I don't see how we're going to get it down to 4 priorities.
Oh, I don't know. I think if you look at the votes, it's getting there. I mean, we need to tally those votes, but I think we're pretty close to getting it down to probably 5.
Okay.
I think we need to be serious then about what are the things that we're the most concerned about. But that statement of local control, maybe that ties in with the statements that we want to make about liquor licenses. Maybe we need to do some wordsmithing with that.
Wordsmithing, and then with the 911, we could probably put those.
Right. There's 3 of them at least that are related to 911. We put them all in there just so that we would cover that topic. From the municipal league perspective as well.
So, do we want to try to put that together and then? Again, go through and have everyone.
I guess I would, if I might, I would like to hear from everyone in terms of how they feel about those and if there's ones we need to add, but I'm not sure that there is. But I'd like everyone to have some sort of input, and if you don't want to say it here, at least respond to that scorecard you got in an email, add to it the items that the administration presented to us today, and then let's get it put together.
Right. Our goal would be to vote on the resolution at the City Council meeting on the 19th of the month. So we do need to come to some type of decision within the next, I would say, week.
Well, do you want me to poke people a little bit more, or should we just go with what we have? Or?
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If we had, if the rest of the council members who have not had input today were able to email to council leadership by the end of this week and fill in their votes on this chart, then I could draft a resolution to have to get on the agenda. Next Monday, we could show it to you under informational next week. And I think we could, again, send out the list that I sent you a week and a half ago that kind of fleshed out these items. So if anybody doesn't have that list and is not recognizing what one of these items are, they'll be able to see them along with the memo that came from Dave Fife Lee today. And if I could get the feedback Friday, I could just count up which are the highest priority. Would that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Then if I might ask Attorney Fife Lee to address that appeals court item just in a little bit more depth so that we understand a little bit better what you're looking at.
Thank you, Council. If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Another item on our list from the legal department is regarding the response to the state Supreme Court's recent decision of Daley versus City of Sioux Falls. That was an appeal from our administrative appeal process. To the council's credit, most every change that we could make on a local level has been made to address the concerns raised by the Supreme Court. However, there was one additional concern that the court expressed that was not briefed by the parties, but it talked about having additional court jurisdiction to hear an appeal from a final decision from our administrative appeal process. And we'd ask that the council support having that as another additional priority. I think that would certainly go in line with what the court was asking that we do. But again, that would require state legislation, nothing we could do on a ordinance level.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Councillor Jameson.
I don't know how we could do it, but if we could get some collaboration with our other major cities in the state, like Rapid City, Aberdeen, Watertown, Mitchell, Pierre, if they've got some of the same priorities that we have, and we could really just, I know the Municipal League does a fine job for us, but in the past, I think we've put it in their hands and maybe hope for the best. And I would like to maybe team up a little bit on a couple of items, if there are some that are major priorities for us that match up with those other major cities. And I think we could probably get some work done in Pierre.
Councillor Brown.
It's so easy for me to offer suggestions as I'm going out the door. This sneaks up on us every year, and in December we're struggling to get our priorities together, and I take responsibility for this. For my time on Municipal League, we probably should, as a group, in like a spring or summer work session, begin to develop those priorities, because in August, that's when all of us get invited to South Dakota Municipal League to begin that process for them in setting those priorities. And then those get adopted in October. So we're sort of playing catch up here, and we should try to get on the front end of that process more, and then we'd be more in sync, I think, with the other communities that you're talking about. It's not unique to Sioux Falls. I think we all struggle to think about the legislature in July, but I would encourage you in your work sessions next year to bring it up maybe in the summer sometime, so you're ready for those August policy discussions.
Thank you, Councillor. That's a great idea. Sue?
If I may, just to respond to Councillor Jameson on one item, which is the voting centers one, next week, Wednesday, the Secretary of State has called a meeting of all the cities and counties that are interested in the voting center concept to meet in Pier to discuss strategy for the legislation that will be proposed for next year. So that's one area that there is cooperation going on. There will be representatives from Sioux Falls, Rapid City, and I think about 3 other cities or I think municipalities that will be working together on that.
So what we're looking for is input from the remainder of the council as to what their priorities are. And then also, if you've seen the list, if we could send that out again with the addition of the administration's priorities. And if you'd like to revise your list, add anything or take anything away, we would appreciate it. And it will be an item for discussion again at next Monday's informational. Again, looking towards the resolution being put forward on the City Council agenda for the 19th. Does that meet with everyone's consensus? All right, thank you. Any other City Council open discussion? If not, we'll go on to our presentation for this afternoon, and we are going to hear about Great Plains Zoo accreditation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. It's my pleasure to be here. I am Chris Beers. I'm the Executive Director of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. The AZA is a not-for-profit association, and we're dedicated to the advancement of zoos and aquariums in the areas of conservation, education, science, and recreation. And over the past 2 days, I've had the opportunity to spend significant time at your zoo, which you know has been granted accreditation again by the AZA. I do hope that that's something of which you are very proud. It provides that your zoo provides outstanding care for its animals, as well as great educational opportunities for guests, while also constantly working on the conservation of our natural world. The top priority of accreditation is excellent animal care, and AZA is dedicated to maintaining standards of excellence in all aspects of animal care and management. Accreditation ensures that every animal at accredited zoos and aquariums receives excellent care every day. Our accredited zoos are constantly evolving, and our standards are constantly being raised. So every zoo must keep up with these changes to remain accredited. And to prove that, we require that each member of AZA go through the entire accreditation process every 5 years. Your zoo cares for more than 1,000 animals, participates in 17 endangered species breeding programs, works towards population management of 25 species, and is involved in a wide variety of veterinary and research programs, and cares for more than 150 species of animals. For a zoo the size of the Great Plains Zoo, I want to assure you that is phenomenal. You have an exciting animal collection for a community your size as well, including Amur tigers, black rhinos, reticulated giraffes, and Humboldt penguins. AZA believes that nothing is more important than assuring the highest standards of animal care, and our accreditation process does just that. The mission of our Accreditation Commission is to establish, uphold, and raise the highest zoological and aquarium standards through a self-evaluation process, an on-site inspection that took place here with 3 inspectors, and peer review. Only those zoos and aquariums that meet these high standards can become members. And by meeting our standards, the Great Plains Zoo has demonstrated its leadership among zoos and aquariums. With accreditation comes a myriad of benefits for the zoo, including participation in our flagship animal conservation program known as the Species Survival Plan. In the last year, your zoo announced the births of Amur tigers, an eastern black rhino, Siamang gibbon, and Grevy zebra. While certainly these births in and of themselves are meaningful for the zoo, they play a significant role in the worldwide population of these animals. And accreditation allows your zoo to continue this important work, because generally accredited zoos in the AZA will only work with and exchange animals with other accredited zoos. It's very important to each accredited zoo to know that everyone that they deal with meets those same very high standards. Accreditation provides an impartial evaluation on a periodic basis by professional colleagues. It promotes professional recognition from the top zoological parks and aquariums in the United States, and promotes excellence within the institution by causing an institution to continuously evaluate itself. AZA accreditation is not guaranteed. Let me repeat that. It is not guaranteed. Once accredited, every zoo and aquarium is expected to continuously advance its professional operation. For example, in 10 years, the AZA has denied accreditation for 26 institutions. So again, it's not guaranteed. Just because the Great Plains Zoo was accredited 5 years ago does not mean that it was guaranteed to happen this year. Our accreditation, we hope, develops public confidence that an institution meets or exceeds current professional standards. It distinguishes AZA-accredited zoos and aquariums from roadside zoos and provides a recognized badge signifying excellence in and commitment to such things as animal cares, conservation, and education. And I'm proud to tell you that your zoo has met these mandatory, rigorous professional standards for animal welfare and management, veterinary care, behavioral enrichment, nutrition, and staff training, and much, much more. Accreditation is a very comprehensive process. So what does having an accredited zoo mean for the community of Sioux Falls? AZA accreditation looks at excellence in all parts of an operation, and I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about some areas of operation your community can be especially proud of. Our 225 AZA accredited zoos and aquariums serve more than 179 million annual visitors, generating an economic impact of $17 billion in economic activity, $4.7 billion in personal earnings, and 142,000 jobs. The Great Plains Zoo is a valuable community resource, providing visitors with opportunities to connect with the natural world and see animals they might not otherwise have an opportunity to see other than in a classroom textbook. Your zoo is an economic driver. The Great Plains Zoo, I understand, is one of the most popular paid attractions in South Dakota. The zoo has a significant economic impact in your community to the tune of over $18 million a year. It employs 36 full-time staff, about 65 or 70 employees in the summer, pays over $1.2 million in salary each year, and spends more than $3.1 million annually on goods and services, not including additional private dollars raised and spent on exhibits and infrastructures. A recent public opinion poll by AZA found that 91% of the public thinks zoos and aquariums are important to the quality of life in a community. The Great Plains Zoo is a valuable contributor to the quality of life in your community. I like to think, the quality of a community is only as good as the quality of its zoo, and you have a high-quality zoo. Your community clearly believes that the zoo is central to the quality of your life because the attendance has grown significantly over the year, almost double what it was 5 years ago. And your zoo is continuously striving to provide a rich visitor experience, and as it evolves, so does its economic impact. Not only does the zoo have a deep commitment to science education and wildlife conservation, but it also generates valuable economic benefits to your region. South Dakota has 2 accredited zoos, the Great Plains Zoo and the Bramble Park Zoo in Waterton, and both play a significant role in the economy of South Dakota. In 2010, the Great Plains Zoo served nearly 243,000 annual visitors, again nearly double its 2005 attendance. The zoo draws about half its summer visitors from outside your community, from a 3-hour radius in the 4-state area. So it's clearly, not only are you a city asset, you are a regional community asset. You're a destination for affordable family fun and an anchor for the tourism industry in your state. It's easy to see why, because it is a great zoo. Nationally, 80% of people think zoos and aquariums are important enough to local communities to be partially supported by government funding. This is another poll that AZA did. And your constituents see the value a great zoo provides the quality of life in your community. AZA accredited zoos are some of the best places for you and your family to get connected to nature and become engaged in conservation action. It's the job of every AZA accredited zoo or aquarium to not only connect people with nature, but inspire them to take that action, share our passion to save our wildlife. With a constant decline of biodiversity on our planet, zoos are tasked with finding ways to convey the importance and interconnectivity of all living things. And at the core of every AZA accredited zoo and aquarium is this commitment to engage the public in significant conservation and conservation education. Your zoo is a center for education, providing a hands-on experience that cannot be duplicated in the traditional classroom. Each year, the Great Plains Zoo educates nearly 46,000 school children through special programs like Zoo Cub classes, summer zoo camps, zoonosis, and Zoomobile outreach program. The education provided by your zoo's staff helps ignite a lifelong interest in nature and conservation. One of the recent studies done by the National Science Foundation has found that adults, we learn outside the classroom. So this living classroom at the Great Plains Zoo is a very important part of our continuing education. Your zoo also knows that sometimes you have to reach people where they are. Because your zoo is always thinking of ways to bring the zoo to kids, in 2009, you launched Zoo TV, an innovative program that provides live feeds of its animals to Sanford Children's Hospital. It's the first of its kind in the nation. I know you received significant national attention from USA Today and NBC Nightly News, and let me tell you, major zoos in the United States are trying to figure out how to beg, borrow, or steal this great idea and adapt it to their community. I really do hope this is a partnership that you all are extremely proud of, because it is unique. This partnership also means that zoo educators visit the Children's Hospital several times a week and bring programs to communities within a 4-hour drive of your community. Your zoo is committed to providing this important education to your region, and education is a core tenet of AZA accreditation. As the attendance number shows, your zoo has proven itself to be a successful regional attraction. But in order to continue to provide a meaningful experience for visitors, because we do know that our visitors have many, many opportunities to spend their leisure time, so the zoo must continue to grow and modernize. And in 2006 and 2007, the zoo undertook a strategic master planning process, which included both facility plans and business forecasting. The philosophy of this plan was to replace aging infrastructure and connect already excellent parts of the zoo. Your leadership is committed to ensuring that everything they build is sustainable and realistic, and that all new exhibits provide opportunities for better living for the animals, as well as significant wow opportunities for your visitors. And your zoo has moved briskly on an impressive number of improvements since 2006. The days of the old animal management style, we hope they're long gone, where people simply viewed an animal in front of its holding. While we want visitors, certainly we want visitors to see animals in appropriate and comfortable living situations, it's really important for our visitors to understand and get a feel for the region, where the animal came from, and a taste of the culture that surrounds it. In 2008, your zoo unveiled a beautiful new Asian cat exhibit featuring panoramic views of Amur tigers, snow leopards, and Pallas cats. I had the opportunity to visit that exhibit yesterday, and I can tell you, I thought it was spot on, just very well done. This improvement also addressed safety issues with the cat holding building. The area is themed with colorful pagodas and a working gong, and all of these elements help tell the story of the Asian steps home. Connecting children with nature. This is becoming increasingly vital as recent trends indicate children are spending more time indoors and less outside connecting with their natural world. And the zoo is one of those places where children can connect with nature and do so in a fun, engaging atmosphere. And in 2009, your zoo transformed the former children's zoo into the colorful and fun Hy-Vee face-to-face farm, which I saw yesterday. Not many visitors yesterday because it was a wee bit cold, but it looks like it would be great to take your children there and have some face-to-face opportunities with goats and camel rides, and it looks like it's a major transformation from prior to 2008. Black rhinos, one of my favorites. These are a critically endangered species with only 4,000 surviving in the wild, and in 2010, the zoo opened a new state-of-the-art eastern black rhino exhibit. In addition to providing a larger space for the zoo's rhinos, the new tree-lined exhibit transports visitors to Africa without leaving Sioux Falls. The Rare Rhinos of Africa exhibit represents a dramatic shift from those old models of viewing animals in their exhibits to having hands-on experiences while learning about the natural world. It engages and excites visitors about rhinos, about Africa, about conservation. Again, I had the opportunity to visit yesterday, and I think it is truly among the top rhino facilities in the country, and you and your citizens deserve congratulations from AZA. In addition to major exhibit improvements in the last 4 years, your zoo has created some amazing experiences for guests with several smaller enhancements, including an albino alligator traveling exhibit in 2007, a complete facelift of the Creepy Crawlers exhibit, the installation of the Zuvi Theater and Ground FX Interactive Playpad in the Delbridge Museum of Natural History, the return of bison and pronghorn to the North America exhibit, and a new black bear exhibit. So why am I telling you all this? To point out, to make sure that you don't lose sight of the fact that great strides have changed the face of your zoo, and I'm pleased to tell you that there are more great strides on the horizon. Zoos and aquariums serve as incredible outlets to understand and appreciate the majesty of animals, plants, and the environment. The children that visit your zoo today, one day we hope will be our leaders, and we hope that what they see and experience at our nation's AZA accredited zoos and aquariums will inspire them to be lifelong advocates for conservation, share my passion and the passion of my colleagues in the AZA. It is the zoo's responsibility to make plans for how it will continue to engage future generations. I think it's an exciting time for your zoo. Yes, they've made lots of significant changes in the last 3 years, more in the future. They just laid out plans for the next 10 years in their master planning process. so that each project is designed to create multiple visitor wow opportunities, be revenue positive, I'm sure that's music to your ears, have limited expense effects on the zoo's budget, provide opportunities to engage the public, and be sustainable and realistic. So let me tell you just briefly about the phases of your zoo's master plan. First of all, lions, leopards, meerkats. Your zoo plans to create captivating new lion and African leopard exhibits. Meerkats will play in an outdoor exhibit that rounds out an expansive African area with already excellent views of rhino, zebra, giraffe, and ostriches. I'm sure some of you watched the meerkat show earlier that was so let me tell you, meerkats are very, very popular with visitors. With the responsibility to continually inspire, educate, and train future generations on the importance of protecting the natural world, the need for the education zoos provide have never been more vital. With its plans for the Children's Zoo, an ever-changing learning center, your zoo seeks to become a center of excellence for science-based learning. When a zoo creates a master plan, it considers much more than just exciting new exhibits. While one of the goals of any of these projects is to attract and entertain guests, it's also designed to provide improved naturalistic environments for the animals and to advance the zoo's mission of education and conservation. Monkeys, Magic, and More is your zoo's latest project, and this enhancement will add eye-catching appeal to the entrance of your zoo with an entryway that will draw visitors into a new snow monkey exhibit. These smart social animals are endangered, and your zoo will be a key player in the AZA's Species Survival Program for these animals. This project also will rework the front of the zoo and museum and create an entrance that will be engaging and iconic so that people not only recognize it as being part of your zoo, but also part of your community. The reworked entryway will help the zoo manage its 243,000 and growing annual visitors better and provide for much needed education classrooms, better gift shop access, and enhanced member processing. AZA accredited zoos and aquariums recognize that they can't stand still in our ever-changing world as they build new exhibits, launch new conservation efforts, and create new education opportunities. They not only move the organization forward, but create new opportunities for the communities in which they live. It's absolutely imperative that your Great Plains Zoo continue to be a strong community cultural treasure and asset. It's also, the zoo will create new opportunities for positive change that can have a global effect. Your zoo does not take the responsibility or the resources it has been given lightly. And yes, that is also a requirement of accreditation. We want to make sure that zoos are fiscally responsible. I'm pleased to tell you, I think your zoo management gets it. They're good stewards of their resources. They consider how to best use what has been entrusted to them by the public and by you. It all starts with the goal of driving more visitors to the gate. They understand that when they enhance the visitor experience, create more exhibits and attractions, increase awareness, and implement better programs, they are more fully and comprehensively fulfilling the mission of a 21st century zoo. This leads to increases in community relevance, membership, sponsorship attractiveness, and visitor service spending, and continues the organization's upward spiral. Your zoo management team examines all details and all strategies with the goal of providing exceptional care for its animals, improved programs for its guests, and the opportunities to create awareness about the natural world. And I do think it shows. 7 years ago, your zoo wasn't in as great a shape as it is today. I think it might be fair to say your zoo was in a little bit of distress. In the years since then, The Great Plains Zoo has made rapid progress in a number of areas of operation, and these results are not typical. In my role as executive director of the AZA, I have the pleasure and opportunity to visit not all, but most of the 225 accredited member zoos, and I see firsthand why your zoo has been granted our badge of excellence, this accreditation. Your zoo not only made the needed fixes it needed to do to remain accredited, but has created a sound financial footing through some dynamic fundraising, has recruited highly professional staff, and has built major visitor wows, not to mention doubling that attendance and tripling membership. I do think this is rapid progress, and congratulations go to all of you, as well as the Zoo Society Board, and certainly Elizabeth Whaley and her staff. The brisk pace at which these advancements were made reflects the work of a dedicated professional staff. And yes, any organization is only as good as its people, and I think your zoo leadership has gathered a group of bright, progressive professionals dedicated to the zoo's mission of fostering a greater understanding of the natural world through education, conservation, recreation, and discovery. And each department, from guest services to animal care, is represented by a group of committed and trained individuals who are experts in the field. By the way, that is a requirement of education. We want to make sure that there are sufficient numbers of staff and that they are experts in their field and appropriately trained. When an organization is filled with enthusiastic and knowledgeable people, as we know, it continues on that forward progression. So, in summary, fewer than 10% of approximately 2,600 licensed exhibitors by the United States Department of Agriculture are AZA accredited. So what does that mean? It really means that only the best of the best meet these highest standards in the world for zoos and aquariums, and I am extremely proud to be here today to tell you that your Great Plains Zoo meets those highest standards, and I congratulate you on having this gem in your city. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? Councillor Karski.
More of a comment than a question. And well, first of all, Chris, welcome to Sioux Falls from Maryland. I know it was a long trip for you. And,
Thank you. My pleasure.
And cooperated with a little snowfall for you. So
I like it.
Okay. I was at the announcement today for this at the zoo, and I was impressed. I met one lady, and I wish I could remember her name, but she was handling one of the animals, and you talk about experienced staff and so forth, and she was a former high school science teacher, and that kind of surprised me. I don't know why, but it pleased me that she was there and working at our zoo. We do have a great zoo. It is a gem in our community, and we have good management, and I think they're doing a fantastic job, and I just wanted to publicly recognize them for that, and thank you for being here.
My pleasure. It's my first time in South Dakota, and I'm really glad I had the opportunity to come here and talk with you all today, and also to be here to say congratulations to the zoo.
Councillor Brown.
Chris, welcome to Sioux Falls. We're honored
Thank
that
you.
you'd be here. It's nice. I think we've known for some time that we have an excellent zoo here, but it's great to have an expert come in from the outside and confirm that for us. So we appreciate you coming and telling us that. I just had a question regarding that top 10%. Who is it the company we keep in that 10% club?
Well, you keep the same company. You meet your zoo meets exactly the same standards as the San Diego Zoo, as the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, as the St. Louis Zoo, as the Smithsonian's National Zoo, as you know. So those are on the larger end. But the zoo also keeps the same company as some of the small. You're not the smallest zoo by any means. As like the Peoria Zoo in Peoria, Illinois, or
I believe you mentioned Watertown, too? as
The
well?
the Bramble Park Zoo in Watertown, absolutely. The Minnesota Zoo, the Como Zoo in St. Paul. So a wide range. But the key, and thank you for bringing that up, is that every single one, from the smallest to the largest, meets exactly the same standards, which is actually interesting. We talked today about, or I was referring to the 225 accredited zoos and aquariums. There are 214 of them in the United States. But we also actually have members in the Bahamas, Bermuda, Argentina, Mexico, Canada, and Hong Kong. Hong Kong. Why does the Ocean Park Corporation in Hong Kong, why do they want to be a member of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums? It's because we have the highest standards in the world. And so you keep excellent company.
Thank you, Chris. Also, I was at the announcement today, but I think the council also, we should recognize Elizabeth and Dan, and we have a number of the board members here today, too, and this is an amazing accomplishment by them, so I think we owe them a round of applause.
Any other questions or comments for Chris? Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your presentation.
My pleasure.
I would now entertain a motion to go into executive session for consulting with legal counsel about proposed or pending litigation.
So moved, Jameson?
Second, Erpenbach.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are now going into executive session.